Live from Happy Valley Studios, this is the MCS1 show. And now your host, the guy who voted for Nader twice, MCS1.
Welcome to another edition of the MCS1 show. I'm MCS1, and today I have a very special guest with me. I have with me the director and writer of the movie that has just come out recently around Provo, Utah area, or Salt Lake City area, however you want to define it. I have with me the director and writer of Zaz, the Reverend. Please welcome him. Welcome, Reverend. So I have a question, just first of all, before we get into Zaz and all that type of stuff. The Reverend. How'd you get that name? Because that is a unique name.
Okay, yeah, the Reverend came in high school. When I was in high school, I grew up in Utah.
Okay.
And then
like a small town in Utah, or like a
Provo.
big city? Provo. Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Provo. And
okay. The most closed off area of Utah for not being a small town.
The zealot stronghold. Yeah. So I grew up in Utah, and then I moved to Ohio. High school. Yeah. And
was that a big change?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Utah is very, Mormon culture, and there's not a whole lot of diversity.
Yeah.
So I went to Ohio, and in one of my classes, I think it was my geometry class actually, I had an interesting teacher, and for some reason, he asked me a question, I answered it, and he says, "That's right, the Reverend," or something. And, he said the Reverend, he called me the Reverend.
Just once.
Just once, and there was this other guy in the class named Dusty. I can't remember his last name, but he said, "The Reverend, I like that," and he started calling me the Reverend, and it spread, and everyone called me Reverend. It got shortened to the Rev, or Rev.
The Rev, or Rev.
Yeah, most people called me Rev, but...
Do you want me to call you Rev during
that? Yeah,
okay.
Fine, and then, so everyone in Ohio actually knows me as the Reverend, or Rev.
Oh.
But I haven't been back since I moved back to Utah, so there's only a few people out there who still call me that from that time.
Yeah.
But I've always liked that nickname a lot, and I thought it was fun and interesting. There was different variations on it, like the Preacher Man and different
the Preacher Man.
So, yeah, it was pretty fun.
That's cool. I gotta say, that's a pretty unique nickname. Mine's only my initials.
Yeah.
So the Reverend. So. Okay, so just a little bit of backstory before we get into Zaz. So you and I had a class together.
Yeah.
We both had a senior projects film class at Utah Valley University. And I just want to say I was a big fan of your work. You did a project called Sunmarker, which you obviously know. Mm-hmm. And do you want to just briefly talk about Sunmarker just real quick for the audience?
Sure.
Before we get into Zaz.
Yeah, that's good. Sunmarker was my first documentary film project that I've worked on. I'm still continuing to work on it, but for the the qualifications of that class and everything, I used it as my senior project. And it's a film where I was striving to document all the different Archaeoastronomy alignments on a sculpture made by an artist named Joe Paycheck in the Four Corners area, which is Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado. That little area of the country down there. He's in a little town called Blanding, Utah. He made a sculpture, and he named that sculpture Sunmarker. And in his the way he designed it was that he wanted it to line up. Basically, all the important dates of the calendar are marked on that sculpture. So he's got the solstices, winter and summer solstice, equinox, and he even has the cross-quarter dates marked on it. And so there's, I can't remember how many alignments there are on it, but every season has a different alignment. And some of them have, on the same day, you'll get 3 alignments. So
wow. It's
a pretty intricate sculpture, and I was very interested in that subject matter. And Joe Paycheck's he's a really great guy. I met him years ago, and I've always really liked him, and I thought it'd be really interesting to work with him on the project. So it worked out really well, and I really enjoyed doing that project, learning more about Archaeoastronomy, which is a subject that I find very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was also one of my first film projects, which is what I've always wanted to do is make films.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, cool thing about Sunmarker is I was in the UVU class as well, and I was doing a documentary as well on history, which is something that I don't really, I kind of care about, but not as much. Yeah. But every week, like, I honestly looked forward to seeing your progress on your film. I thought Sunmarker was just amazing and just very well done, which is kind of why I wanted to bring that up.
Cool, yeah. I really enjoy working on it. I'm still working on it as we speak. So,
yeah, Sunmarker, way cool. Great film. So moving from Sunmarker, let's segue into Zaz a bit. So tell me what gave you the idea for, tell us a little bit about what Zaz is about and what gave you the idea for it.
Okay. So Sunmarker actually is related to Zaz. They're totally different films, but with Sunmarker, I was, for months and on end, I was editing, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day on Sunmarker, narrowing it down and fine tuning it and everything. It takes forever to edit.
Yeah, people don't understand that.
It takes a lot of work. And so the way my setup was with my computer and my editing station is that it was on like this little table that was not very high off the ground.
Yeah.
I don't usually like Western furniture because it takes up so much space, like couches and chairs.
Yeah.
And so usually I like to design my areas with pillows rather than chairs.
Yeah.
And so the way I had my computer set up at this time was a little pillow where I would kneel down and sit on a pillow and work on my computer for hours on end. And towards the end of that semester, when I was working on Sunmarker, I just got this idea, and it was a really intensive project, so I was kind of overwhelmed at that point. But I got this idea of how I was kneeling down to my computer. I was basically worshiping it. I was doing this repeated motion every day, day in and day out, like as if I was, worshiping this deity on my computer. And I just kind of said, that's not an interesting idea. And I kind of wrote down on the side, made a little note.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, when I'm done with Sunmarker, I'll kind of look more into this idea and this concept of a guy who worships his computer. And then I got the idea that the computer wanted to make a movie, because that also related to Sunmarker, because Sunmarker, I was editing on Sunmarker, but actually there wasn't a physical movie anywhere. It was stuck inside my computer.
Oh.
And I had a lot of hard time getting an export of Sunmarker that I liked. I still don't think I fully solved that issue,
Yeah.
So basically, I've spent months of work on my computer and it's stuck in there and I can't get it out.
Yeah. And as a filmmaker, you're always noticing little things. You're like, oh, I need to fix this.
Yeah.
It's never perfect.
Yeah. So I kind of felt like the computer was taking over my film, and that's kind of gave me the idea for Zaz, was this overpowering computer that was trying to make a movie,
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was perfectly related. Did you by chance was your computer happen to be named Zaz? How you can go in and name your computer kind of thing? It's name Zaz for the network?
No.
If not, you should do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It wasn't originally named Zaz. One of my, I use different aliases. So the Reverend is an alias.
Yeah.
There's other aliases that I use. One of them is Dbot5.
Dbot5, okay.
Which I actually found out that Dbot5 is an actual company, so I've kind of extended it to Dbot 5000.
Oh, and that's add a few zeros, make it sound way cooler.
Yeah, that's the name of my computer actually, is Dbot 5000.
I actually found out, MCS1 some kind of company out in Japan. Should I just change my name to MCS 1000?
There you go.
I might do it.
Yeah, it might work. What was the question about? Oh, naming my computer.
Yeah.
Zaz. No, Zaz, the name Zaz came, it took me a while to figure it out, but there's definitely some references to Zardoz in Zaz.
Okay. Zardoz, I'm not familiar with that reference.
Zardoz is a John Bowerman film And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he's a British director who's more famous for Deliverance.
Okay.
Have you seen Deliverance? Yeah. So he made Deliverance, which was, you could say a commercial and critical success. It's got Burt Reynolds and John Voight in it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great film. And he, with the power he obtained from having a critical success, he decided he was going to make his own, film, which was a little bit weird, and people didn't really understand it. But anyways, he got the money and the budget and the go-ahead to make a film called Zardoz. And Zardoz has Sean Connery in it. I don't think there's anybody else really very famous in the cast,
Yeah.
But it's kind of revered across the board as being like a terrible film. Most people hate it. I think it's actually really good. I think there's a lot of social commentary in it that I find very fascinating. But if you look it up on IMDb, most people are just straight up hating it, saying it's the worst thing they've ever seen.
It's like a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
which is an awful site in general.
Yeah,
but
it's not very well received. But I've always liked it, and I like the title Zardoz a lot. And Zardoz, I don't want to ruin the movie if you ever go see it, but Zardoz does have a reference to the Wizard of Oz. That's actually where the title comes from a little bit. So
now that I kind of think about this, Zaz, describe Zaz to me real quick. Not like the movie, but like the character.
The character
Zaz. And how this kind of, I just noticed this kind of does relate to the Wizard of Oz a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. There's some theatricality elements in place. Zaz is a computer. In the film, it doesn't really explain the origins of Zaz. I'm actually kind of thinking about those as I'm writing another script about Zaz.
So you're going to write a prequel to Zaz? Or
well, Zaz ended up being a short film about 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I would like to write a feature of Zaz.
Okay.
And so,
I would love to see a feature of Zaz.
Yeah, so that's my kind of...
And if I could do a cameo in there, just throwing that out there, just let me know.
You would have been on Zaz if you could have made it.
I know. I had something going on that day, and I really wanted to go, but I just couldn't. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, Casey told me that he had told you about it.
Yeah, and I was really excited, but I couldn't make it, and I can't remember what it was, but... Unfortunately, I wish I would have went now looking back.
Yeah,
I don't even remember what I had to go to.
Don't worry, there'll be other opportunities.
Okay.
Because Zaz, a lot of the thing with Zaz is a lot of production design, a lot of work building the set and stuff. And I've kept all that. I put most of the money went into the set and the building.
The production is amazing. We'll display some pictures throughout the video of this, but everything was just beautiful and well done.
Cool.
I was just so impressed. And when I was talking with Casey, who plays the main character, both the main characters, which is really strange.
Yeah.
How he plays Zaz and what is it, 1001 or
1011?
1011. Okay.
But his name does change in the middle of towards the end of the film, and he becomes 0100. He becomes his polar opposite in a certain sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Zaz, it's like this giant character that what was it,
1011.
1011 just worships. And sorry, I didn't mean to get too off track. So this origin of Zaz that we were...
Oh yeah, the Zaz. Well, I haven't fully figured out the origin of Zaz. I'm still working on it.
Okay.
But in the film, it's just kind of implied that 1011 has been for some time worshiping his computer deity altar thing called Zaz.
Yeah.
And originally, I had thought of Zaz being a computer screen, which was basically where the idea came from.
Yeah.
And I was just going to have it be a computer screen of a blank image of a deity. And I actually had a deity picked out. It was this image of a Celtic deity called Belenus.
Okay.
So I was going to use that as the image of Zaz. But while I was working on Zaz, I went to my friend who I don't think I'm the best screenwriter, so I was having a real hard time with the script when I was writing it. And I went to my friend who I thought could help me with the script, and it turned out that he didn't really know how to help me with it, and it was kind of a weird script to work with. But randomly, he had this giant tiki head that he called it a tiki head, and he had made it for his daughter, and he put it on top of her bookshelf. And he said, and he had moved out of his parents' house. His daughter had grown up. She's like 14 now or something. And so he didn't necessarily need this giant tiki head anymore. And he said, well, if you want this tiki head, it might
I just have this tiki head laying around.
Yeah, he kind of had it. And
I was going to get rid of it at the garage sale, but if you're really interested.
Yeah, it turned out to be really awesome for the set design to have a tiki head. And then we kind of wanted to play with the character of Zaz and make... Zaz has digital powers where he can control computers and things, but also give him a puppeteering style where he can move his jaw and talk to 1011. So that kind of came together that way. So.
Yeah. And so he only interacts pretty much... Zaz only interacts with 1011 the whole time.
Correct.
And that's...
But Zaz has the character of Zaz, he has this ego, and it's kind of based on directors, filmmaking directors. Directors want to have their stuff be noticed and that kind of thing. And so Zaz, he's a film director in a sense. Zaz is directing a movie, and he only has interaction with 1011, but his desire, his purpose, the goal of the film, is for 1011 to go out and capture or convert followers to come back to the Zaz chamber. Now the problem with Zaz is that he doesn't know how to make a movie. He's never done it before,
Yeah.
So when he goes out,
Michael Bay.
Yeah, exactly. So when he displays his movie to the masses, in which he hopes will convert the masses and bring them into the Zaz chamber, he wants to fill the Zaz chamber, but it ends up working out that the people don't really like what his propaganda.
Yeah, what his movie is.
Yeah,
one thing. And I thought that was just really interesting. The whole time that the film was going on, Casey would be talking to me, and he would be telling me about Zaz, and I'd just be fascinated with it. And I thought of, I was like, oh, it's sad that that's the only person he interacted with, like Zaz and 1011. And what I really wanted to happen was, I just thought this would be hilarious for the movie, just have Zaz and have 2 guards next to him or something like that, this huge religious figure. And all of a sudden someone walks in, and are standing next to Zaz, and someone just goes, "Kneel before Zaz!" And I just thought that would be the coolest thing ever. And so every night when I would talk to Casey, I would just throw that out there just randomly. I'd be like, "Kneel before Zaz!" And he told me about a day that he was filming one time where he had to kneel the whole time. And I said that to him, and he goes, I think I've done enough kneeling for Zaz for one day. I've been kneeling, for about, 3 to 4 hours at least, or something like that. And it was crazy.
Yeah, he did a lot of really good work on it. Casey did a great job, and I was lucky to find him at the time, because when we did casting, I didn't really know very many actors, and I didn't really have I still don't really have the best networking capabilities of finding people, but
it
ended up working out really well that he was able to do that. And I like your idea of having these, these
guards kneel before Zaz. If you want, I'll be a guard. If I just say kneel before Zaz, my life will be complete.
I like that. That's good. Yeah.
So Zaz, funny movie. When I saw it, I enjoyed it a lot. And what were some of the reactions that you got from it, and what were they different from what you were expecting from Zaz?
Okay, well,
Casey, he told me, he goes, film night, I was excited because of what he told me. With me it resonated a ton, and I was just like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. And he told me, he goes, I haven't seen the final edit. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. Ultimately, in the end, he was really, really happy.
Yeah.
But he's like, I really don't know how it's going to be. And he was kind of scared.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he did a lot of work on it, and he wants, to use it as a portfolio.
Yeah.
So hopefully, his work turned out well for him. I thought he did a good job. And, for as far as, the reactions to Zaz, it's kind of supposed to be a movie about making a bad movie.
Yeah.
So that there's a movie inside the movie, and the movie inside the movie kind of sucks, and it kind of...
similar to the Truman Show.
Yeah, maybe the Truman Show or something.
Not quite. I mean, a movie that's inside a movie, and the movie inside sucks.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe a little bit kind of like that, or kind of like Ed Wood. Have you ever seen that film?
I haven't.
It's one of my favorite Tim Burton films, but it shows. I've always liked movies about the movie making process.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to do that here.
Like Entourage, but real.
And then you can show the camera and the
yeah,
lights and
yeah.
and you can show the production things going on. So that's kind of fun. And so Zaz is kind of based on a lot of ideas that I came across in a cult films class.
Okay.
Which I had here at UVU. And I really liked it. I really liked the teacher, Wendell Nielsen. We're actually working on another film right now.
Nice.
So, yeah, and I really liked, his definition of cult film and what makes cult film work. And one of the things that he brought across is that cult films are generally rejected by the masses, but there's a select group of people who identify with that film and
kind of like the counterculture movement.
Yeah, they'll kind of
thing.
champion it. And
Yeah,
we like this movie, and we identify with this movie because everybody else doesn't like this movie.
Exactly.
So there's part of that in Zaz, like where I was hoping that it would be. I don't think it's very offensive, but I kind of wanted it to be a little bit offensive.
Just on the line a little bit. That's kind of how I am. I try to be slightly offensive, but I mostly try to stay on the line of things.
Yeah, exactly. And to real cult films do kind of push their limits, as far as how far they're willing to go. And I think I probably could have pushed it further. However, being a class project, it did get denied, and I had to tone it down just to get it accepted in the class.
Okay.
So I did.
Who was the teacher for that, if you don't mind me asking?
Bob Trim.
Okay.
Yeah. He told me with the script rewrites and everything, he said, you got to tone it down. It's going to be too offensive. And so I did, compromise a little bit with what he was saying, and I was still working on the script. So I did tone it down a little bit, but then I tried to kind of leave those elements be more under the radar, still there, but not as blatant as they were originally. Maybe.
Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah, Zaz. So the reactions you got, it was like some good, some bad, or...
Yeah, well, the screening, I've only screened it once, and you were there at the screening.
Yeah.
That was basically for the cast and crew to say thank you for all the help, because a lot of people helped out a lot on this film.
Yeah, it was a big turnout.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of extras, and then crew, and all the different actors and stuff. And so it seemed like things went over pretty well with the people who showed up for the screening. And I haven't really done much with it since. Casey, who's in it, he wanted a copy for his demo reel, and so he took a copy, and he showed it to his family.
Yeah, he didn't tell me the reactions, but it was really funny because I talked to him about it. I'm like, this isn't the most family-friendly film. I mean, not that it's bad or anything, but it's just when you think of family, you think of, like Disney movies and, Pixar and things like that. And he goes, well, my family's not the most family-friendly family. So, but he never told me the reactions. Did he tell you? I think that's what you're getting at.
I was curious what happened, and he said that they hated it, and which made me really happy because I had so much positive reactions at the screening, and I was like, well, it's supposed to offend some people, it's supposed to some people are supposed to like it, most people are not supposed to like it. And then I heard from his family, or from his viewing with his family, he said that after it was over, he said there was dead silence and nobody knew what to say. And he said that his family is very open with talking to him, and that they give him honest feedback, and they said they hated it. It was awful. They didn't know whether it was a comedy or whether it was supposed to be serious. They didn't get any of the jokes.
It had a lot of dry humor.
Yeah, it didn't make none of it.
I think you got to have a really good sense of humor, and I think you have to have a different level of either intelligence or culture references to get Zaz. So for me, I got all most of the references.
Yeah.
I felt like I got a very good amount, and I remember there was sometimes I was laughing out loud and looked around. I was the only one laughing. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened. A lot of the dialogue is taken from other films.
Yeah, and I caught on to that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if everyone's catching all the references, but I tried to, keep it somewhat, mix it up and keep it somewhat interesting for people who like other films. It's a movie about movies.
Yeah. So what is the next logical step for Zaz, or what do you want to do next? I remember you mentioned a feature, but what's the actual film? What do you want to do with it now?
Oh, the short that we've made.
Yeah.
Well, I entered it into a festival, and it's in a festival that's going to be playing in July.
Okay.
So it's in a festival.
What festival is it? Can we get the name?
Yeah, Film Quest.
Film Quest.
Yeah.
And where's that taking place?
It's going to be in Salt Lake.
Okay.
It's this first year of this festival, and the festival is designed around horror and sci-fi and fantasy, those type of films. So it's kind of a specific genre-based festival. And I've talked to the director of the festival, or the guy who's in charge of it, and he's really trying to promote this and make it. He says within the next few years he wants to make it in the top 2 or 3 fantasy or sci-fi festivals in the world. So
and it could happen in Utah. I mean, when they threw out that Comic-Con first year, it was like it was the largest first Comic-Con that ever happened, and then they had the Fan X Comic-Con shortly after, and it was the 3rd largest Comic-Con ever. And it's like, wow, there are so many nerds around here that this could happen. It could be the biggest.
It seems like people are really into it. So
yeah.
That's cool, yeah.
So, Zaz, that's the next step. You want to take it to this film festival. Do you have a date on this?
The festival is June 30th through July 4th or 5th.
Okay.
Somewhere there, the first week of July.
Okay. So if you're in Salt Lake, people, go see Zaz.
Yeah, it'll be screened there. I don't know exactly the schedule or anything yet. They're still working on that, but it's
Google it, people.
Yeah, it's in there. So.
Okay. Well, one other question I had about Zaz the film. Okay, so we had this film festival, I guess.
Sure.
So what after that? You're just gonna enter it in a couple more film festivals, and I know it. You can't put it online yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the thing. Can you explain to the audience why you can't do that?
Well, from what I've gathered with film festivals, they won't accept films that are online. Like, why would someone go to a film festival and pay money to see something they can see
watch
on
the internet? Yeah.
So I'm going to hold off on putting it online yet. But the way the technology and everything's changing, the way of distributing your films is always advancing, and the internet is the new way. So eventually, at some point, I'll put it online. But I'll probably hold off and see what I can get going through the film festivals. That's the way I was kind of raised. Is Sundance. You try for Sundance, and then if it does well there, then it gets picked up for distribution.
Yeah.
With the short, you're not necessarily going to get distributed, but I guess it's just trying to get. I like the film festival route, even though it's outdated. I like to try.
It's still cool.
Go that way, because it's fun. People getting together and experiencing.
And they get to act. You get to ask the director, the actor, the writer. You get to ask all those people who worked on things firsthand. And it's like, at the end, it's like they're your hero after you see the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so cool. You will be someone's hero.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like, my experiences at Sundance through the years. It's been a great thing to have in Utah and be exposed to year after year. So
very fun. I love Sundance. So one last question about that. I think it's one last question. I may come up with more, but what, back to the reactions a little bit, was, so the guy's worshiping his computer, and did you mean to have any religious context into Zaz? Because I see sci-fi references. I see cult film references. I see a few religious references in there. But was that intentional, or is that just something that comes along with it because that's what you're writing about? You're writing about worshiping a computer.
Yeah, no, there's definitely religious references and overtones throughout the whole piece, and I'm not necessarily anti-religious, and I don't think the film is anti-religious.
I don't either, but I got that vibe that some people felt like it was afterwards, and I was like, really? It didn't seem.
Okay.
It didn't seem that bad. That was like one vibe that I got, and I'm like, really, guys? Because to me, it didn't seem that bad. But I'm a little bit of a nihilist, so not too much is really sacred with me.
There is definitely references to the dominant and current, like the main culture here in Utah is Mormonism. And there are a lot of references to Mormonism. I have some, I will go and do the things with which growing up as a kid, you get those songs stuck in your head. And
oh, yeah.
So it had to come out some way, this is the way it came out.
I haven't sang this in forever, I'm going to put it in my movie.
Yeah. And so there's a few references like that, and they're meant to be kind of, poking fun a little bit and funny, but they definitely could be offensive. And I think that even people within my group, in my class, when we read the script, I remember them starting to get the references to Mormonism.
Oh.
And it's okay to laugh at, if it was maybe all Catholic references, but once they started realizing there was Mormon references, it's harder to laugh at yourself a little bit,
Yeah.
People religion, obviously they take it very seriously.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe it's a fine line.
It's a very fine line. And the thing about, like with me, it's like a few things here or there poking fun on the surface. I don't feel like that's so bad.
Yeah.
And I felt that's what Zaz did. I would say it poked fun at the surface of kind of all religions a little bit. And just poked fun at those. And it didn't go into this is wrong because of this. And it wasn't an anti-religion film.
Yeah.
And it was just one more aspect of something funny to be in there. And that's what I really actually loved about Zaz. And the one spoiler I will give, sorry,
sure,
don't hate me. It's the scene that Casey, he told me he came up with it. I don't know if he's just claiming that, but the where he takes the he has a stick of ram on his neck, and he kisses it like it's a cross, and then he does that instead of that Father, Son, Holy Ghost Catholic thing, he does a Z across his stomach.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I laughed so hard. That was one of the funniest moments to me.
Yeah, that was something Casey came up with, and I really liked it. Instead of crossing yourself like the Catholics do, he does a Z.
A Z, which
Mormonism is definitely in there because it's so prevalent, and it's what I'm familiar with being raised in Utah. But the Z is definitely referencing Catholic crossing themselves, which Mormons don't do. And I did try to. A lot of Zaz's dialogue comes directly from the Bible, a little bit from the Book of Mormon.
Star Wars.
There's Star Wars. There's
it could be a religion, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is to some people. And there's the Tao Te Ching and other religions in there too. So I didn't want it to be just Mormonism, but obviously people in Utah pick up on the Mormon references.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll be offended, or maybe they'll think it's funny.
And that goes back to that whole. It's good if it offends a big chunk, but as long as there's a certain crowd that loves it, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope some people like it.
I loved it, so I'm looking forward to what comes next with Zaz. So anything else you wanna mention? Is there a portfolio site you got going, or something where you can check things out that you've done, or anything you want to put in a plug for?
No, not really. I'm working on that. I'm still a little behind on the whole networking and promoting aspect.
Okay.
These are my first couple of film projects, and I'm been through the filmmaking process of starting from the beginning, editing, finishing it, and then having a finished product. And now I'm learning that aspect of filmmaking, where you go out and you actually start showing it and talking about it, and getting finding an audience, I guess. And so I'm this is kind of my first few gigs, and I'm learning how it works.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great work so far.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess that's a wrap for our show then.
Sounds good.
Thank you, the Reverend, for coming on. And Zaz, go check it out, everyone. We'll provide some links for you guys to go look at a couple things. And in the immortal words of Jerry Springer, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.